kitchen with me, Heather D, and today I got another special treat. This is going to be a spiced apple cake with a caramel glaze or caramel glaze, however you want to say it. It's more of a caramel glaze, I'll say. Yes, an apple cake with a caramel glaze and chopped up walnuts. And there's a special ingredient in this recipe that you would think twice to use, but it is going to give it so much flavor. So I guarantee your family will like this, and anybody you share this dessert with will love it. So watch and see how I get this put together. So these are the ingredients we will be using. This here will be part of our caramel glaze or that we're going to use on our cake. And of course, we are using a box cake mix for this. So this is another simple recipe. You don't have to do much too. But our secret ingredient is this Tazo Chai Tea. Now, of course, most box cake mixes ask for water. Well, we're going to replace the water this time. This chai latte has a lot of the ingredients that we're going to enhance this flavor with this being a spiced apple cake. It has cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, and vanilla. All the wonderful flavors that we need to enhance this spice cake mix. And you want to make sure that it is room temperature. Now, if you want and you're not a big chai tea fan, then you can go ahead and use apple juice. But we want to enhance the flavor of this apple cake. So we want to make sure that we got very good flavors. These are the ingredients, and this recipe will be listed in the description box below. So we're going to see how I put this together, and you're going to see how delicious and moist this cake is going to be. It will be a guaranteed crowd pleaser. We're going to start out with our butter. I'm going to use a half a stick of this butter. The other half will be used in my for our caramel glaze. And yes, it's room temperature, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to use a half a stick of it. We're going to put the other half to the side. And then we're going to also add our oil. And I'm going to break each egg one at a time into this bowl, and I'm going to mix this all together, as well as add my sour cream. This is about a good half a cup to maybe 3/4 cup of sour cream. This is going to also add a very good flavor to the cake. And then I'm going to add my tea. So we're pretty much going to add all of our wet ingredients in one bowl, blend it up, and then we'll do our dry in a separate bowl. So I'll be right back. Just breaking them one at a time and place it in there. Because this is a box cake mix, you really don't have to be very technical, but it's all about embellishing the flavor. Now I'm adding my sour cream. And like I said, we want all of our wet ingredients to be room temperature. It helps the cake to come out really, really nice and fluffy. That is done. Of course, I always keep my sink of soapy bleach water on hand. And now it's time to blend. Now I'm going to add my tea, and this is only 1 cup of the chai tea. And it has all pretty much the same ingredients and flavors that is in our box cake mix. I'm just going to go ahead and blend this up on a low speed because we don't want this to splatter everywhere. Okay, after a few seconds, this step is done with our wet ingredients. Now for our dry. We're going to get this bowl, and I'm going to use this and just put our dry ingredients, which is not many. It's going to be our cinnamon and our ginger. This is a spiced cake mix, so we're going to get that going. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm adding my cake mix, which is our dry ingredients, to this bowl. And then next we're going to add just a couple dashes, which probably equal to half a teaspoon of the cinnamon and a couple dashes of the ginger. which should equal also to a half a teaspoon. And then all we're going to do is just whisk this together. And you can smell all that cinnamon and that ginger just bringing out all that wonderful flavors and those fall scents that we're used to smelling when autumn is around the corner or when autumn is here. And then after we whisk that for a couple seconds, then we're going to go ahead and peel and chop our apples. Because our apples are going to go into our dry mix. So that way, when we start to incorporate it with our wet, the dry mix will also make the apples to be able to stay in the middle of the cake and they won't be sinking to the bottom. The same method and step that we did with our sour cream lemon blueberry pound cake. If you haven't seen that recipe, make sure you check on that channel or on that link and you will see my sour cream lemon blueberry pound cake. Now to chop and peel these, or peel and chop. Okay, so we have our apples all clean. They're all peeled and chopped. So now we're just going to add them to our dry ingredients. And we're going to whisk them into the dry ingredients. Because like we said earlier, we want to make sure that they are well coated. So that way they don't sink to the bottom as they're baking. So I'm just going to whisk this up. And after they get whisked, kind of little pieces to stray away. After they get whisked all together, then we go ahead and we add them to our wet ingredients that is in our glass bowl here. Like I said, this recipe is really simple. It is going to be full of flavor. Just lost my whisk. In the sink it goes. And you see all your apples are pretty much well coated. So now I'm going to bring this over here. Get this over here. And we're going to start incorporating the dry with our wet. And we're going to mix it all together. After 2 minutes, this is your batter and it is ready to be poured into your cake pans. Now you can pour this into either a 2 8-inch cake pans and make this a layered cake, or you can pour it into whatever dish that you like. I'm going to pour mine into a bundt cake pan because this is going to go to my job, and I'm going to cut this up into pieces. So I'm going to use a bundt cake pan, and you're going to bake it according to the box instructions as far as what temperature and what time length to bake your cake in. So this is the bundt cake pan. I'm going to spray this and pour our batter in and bake it for 38 to 43 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees. It has been heating up. Well, my oven was preheated, and so it wouldn't take long or much for this to get all mixed. And while it's in the oven, I will be getting my caramel sauce together that's going to be topped on the cake as well. Just pouring it in. Okay, I have it all panned up. Just gonna knock out some of the air bubbles, give it a little shake, and this is about to be placed in the oven, and we're gonna work on our caramel sauce. Okay, so we're about to get started on our caramel sauce, and like I said, this is going to be more of like almost a glaze type sauce. Now, this here is what came from here. The importance of sorting your nuts before you go and use them in your recipes. These are dark walnuts that, for whatever reason, they're dark, old. But this dark nuts will make your whole delicious recipe just mess up with its flavor. So whenever you get nuts, you want to always try to sort your nuts before you go ahead and start cutting them or just pouring them into a recipe. So these are just some 3 dark rancid nuts that are no good. We don't want those. We want our nuts to be a nice brown color. And these are just some chopped walnuts. And in here I have my other half a stick of butter that is salted butter. So you don't have, if you want, you can use unsalted butter, but I chose to use you can use unsalted. I chose to use salted. I'm also going to do about a half a teaspoon of vanilla. extract. Just a half a teaspoon, and this is going to all melt together before I add in my other ingredients, which is my sweetened condensed milk. Now, what I'm also going to add is a little pinch of cinnamon. This caramel sauce is going to have a little hint of cinnamon to help layer those flavors of the cinnamon that's in the cake, and then we're going to have it in the frosting. So we're just going to let this melt until it comes to a nice little bubble. Okay, our dark brown sugar and butter, cinnamon mixture, and vanilla has all melted. And you can see how the consistency is starting to look. And it's starting to bubble just a little bit. This is kind of what you want to go for before you add your condensed milk. And now I'm only going to add about a half a can of this sweetened condensed milk to this caramel sauce. And just want to make sure I pour it just right. And then we're going to stir for about a good 5 to 6 minutes until this gets a little bit thicker. But it's starting to boil, and that's what we're going for. Just want to mix that in real good. And you can add as much caramel or sweetened condensed milk as you want. This is just a quick method for me for this particular cake. It works really, really well. And I'm just going to keep whisking until it is at the right consistency, and I'll show you once this is done. Okay, you can see the caramel sauce, and it coats the back of the spoon nicely. So I'm going to turn the stove off, and I'm going to continue to whisk this because I want to incorporate some air into it. And this caramel sauce is all done. Really simple and easy. And once that spoon cools off, I'm going to definitely taste it. But I turned off my stove, and I'm just going to whisk and get air into it. And then I'm going to pull it to the side and let it rest some. And this sauce is ready to be poured on the cake. Once the cake, it comes out of the oven. So this is what our cake looks like when it comes out the oven. Our apple cake looks almost like a pound cake, but it's not a pound cake. Our spiced apple cake, it is completely done, and it just smells so good in this house. It's like the apple and the spices, the cinnamon and stuff, just have the whole house smelling well. I had to heat up my caramel sauce a little bit because it was starting to get thick, too thick to drizzle on. So I only heated up for like a few seconds. So now I'm just letting it, whisking it all together, because in about 5 to 10 minutes, this is going to be flipped out onto the plate, and I'm going to drizzle this sauce on top. And of course, if you're wondering, I did not forget about the nuts, because the nuts are going to be topped on top of the cake. Once this caramel sauce goes on, the nuts will too. And I can't wait to flip this out, and you can see what it's going to look like. Okay, look at it. It's been about 5 to 7 minutes, and this is what my cake looks like. This is that spiced apple cake, and you can see little chunks of apples here in different parts. Now to drizzle on. See what I mean? As soon as it cools down, but it's still warm enough to work with. Get this as close as possible, and we are going to drizzle this. Ooh, look at that. That is quite satisfying looking. That glaze. Just drizzle all over the cake until it is, ooh, that's a big old chunk. Just until you get it completely covered. Now, this cake is still warm, so the glaze is not going to last that long as far as on top of the cake. But, you get the general idea. I'm going to have to kind of fix this up some more. But I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I hope you like this video. I'm going to fix this up, and then we're going to see how this look at the end, especially after I top it with these nuts. Woo. Okay, so the nuts have topped the cake, and yes, they are fully loaded. The caramel glaze have started to thicken up where it is now, not drizzling anymore. but those nuts kind of hide some of the imperfections that I had. But this spiced apple cake with this caramel sauce and topped with this walnuts, almost remind you of the fair. But I'm going to have to cut into this cake. And I'm going to wait about 2 or 3 minutes before I do. And I'm going to wait to show you the inside on how nice and moist this cake is going to be. And how delicious it is. Okay, so I've cut into the cake. It has cooled down enough, at least for me to try. But look how moist it is. Look. Had a phone call coming through. But it's nice and moist. So good. Well, if you know what to do, click that like, share, and subscribe button if this is a cake you'd like to try. I can't wait to taste this. So moist. Them apples. Them nuts. The caramel. The apples. And the walnuts pair so well together. So much flavor. Well, I'm gonna let my young one finish this cake up. But you know what to do. Thank you for watching. God bless. And I think my employees, my co-workers are going to love this cake. Goodbye.